Welcome to the CURES digital show and podcast where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. This episode is sponsored by the Center for Advanced Reproductive Services, and I'm Kara Sundland. So today we are discussing a drug-free way to heal depression that some say is creating miracles for them. It's actually called TMS, which stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation. And I'm joined now by psychiatrist Dr. Peter Moore. He's been in practice for more than 30 years, and he runs Shoreline TMS in Connecticut. Welcome, doctor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kara.
I know you've really in your practice have experienced all sorts of struggles with mental health, from adults to children, and you've really taken a passion toward helping people with something called TMS. So let's first, a lot of people might not have heard of it. So what is TMS?
Okay, TMS stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation, and at its simplest level, it's the application of the same magnet used by an MRI machine. That magnet is placed against the left side of the skull, and the magnetic energy penetrates the skull and wakes up depressed brain tissue. That's what transcranial magnetic stimulation is.
And we're seeing a little video of it here. Does it hurt? Is it painful at all?
It's painless. The pulses can cause some contraction of the muscles of the skull, the scalp, but it's basically painless.
So, tell us a little bit about what it would be used for. I know it's billed as a drug-free way to treat depression. God bless you. Would it be for just someone who doesn't want to take medication, or more for people that the medication hasn't worked for?
It's more for people that have not responded adequately to 3 or 4 trials of antidepressants and psychotherapy. That's what the insurance companies require in order for it to be paid for. It's now covered by all insurance companies for what they call treatment-resistant depression. But there are many people who either can't tolerate medicine or they don't want to be on medicine. It has also now been approved for smoking cessation and for obsessive compulsive disorder. And they're doing studies on all sorts of other neuropsychiatric conditions, including tinnitus, Parkinson's disease, dementia. So it's been around since 2002, so it's not new, but it's a developing technology.
I do remember interviewing some people way back when this was kind of first coming out, and I recall a police officer who'd been traumatized by 9/11 and other things, and really traumatized to the point he couldn't work anymore, was not leaving his house, and he really credited TMS for saving his life.
Wow. It does work for the depression that's part of PTSD. And when it works, it can be extremely dramatic. It works in 60% of cases of people that haven't responded to medicine. So it's not 100%. But in my practice, where I've been treating people with severe depression for many years, for decades, when it works for those people who I know well over time, it is jaw-dropping.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those who might be listening, they're going to say, well, how does it work? You say it wakes up depressed brain tissue, but talk a little bit about how this works so well for some.
All right, so the electrical stimulation of brain tissue has been around since there have been physiologists studying the brain. The brain itself is an electrical organ, and depression is on that level a decrease in the normal electrical pathways that are involved in mood. Everything in the brain is electrical, but we now know where the structures are that are involved in mood. It's on the left side of the brain, the right side. They're connected across the front of the brain. then that signal is fed into the deeper brain structures. That's called the limbic system. And then a lot of the physical symptoms of depression are mediated through the cerebellum, the back of the brain. So those symptom constellations are divided into three parts. One is the frontal part of the brain, where there's attention, focus, concentration, the ability to take in information and encode it as a memory. So that is depressed in depression. And then there are the mood symptoms, people feeling sad, helpless, guilty, their failure. That is felt to be in the limbic system. And then the physical symptoms of disturbed sleep, sleeping too much or too little, appetite, eating too much or eating too little, feeling cold all the time, decrease in sexual desire. Those are all cerebellar and brainstem functions. All of these things are connected, and by stimulating one part of the brain, that stimulated brain impulse is then communicated to the other parts of the brain. We don't exactly know how it works. There is a certain amount of magnetic energy that's translated into electrical impulses at the tissue level. But in terms of what neurotransmitters are increased or decreased, serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, that has not yet really been clarified.
Okay. So in your experience, who is this appropriate for, and where would you access the treatment? I know you have it, and you're located in Connecticut. Obviously, it seems to be something, it's not telemedicine, you have to physically do this.
Yeah, so it's really appropriate for anyone who has been on several antidepressants and they've had a course of psychotherapy and they still feel depressed. So we're talking about a small subsection of people with depression. 1 out of 4 people have a depressive episode over the course of their life. Half of those people aren't treated. The depression comes and goes over usually a 3 to 6 month period, and people may not notice it, or they'll attribute it to an event in their life. The second or third episode, people know something is wrong, and they'll go to their primary care doctor, and they'll get put on an antidepressant. There are many antidepressants, and they all work quite well. If those people don't respond to the first antidepressant, and you try it for about a month, then the primary care doctor will often try a second and then a third. And at that point, most primary care doctors will feel like they've done as much as they're comfortable doing, and that person will be referred to a specialist, either a psychiatrist or an advanced practice nurse practitioner, a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And those practitioners will then probably try other augmentation strategies to try to get the depression better. When that doesn't work, then the patient is appropriate for TMS.
Okay. So it's not something that people just say, okay, I want something holistic, I'm going to go do this instead. This is something that you would do the...
You can do that, but you would have to pay for it. And it's 36 treatments. So the going rate outside of insurance is somewhere between, $7,000 and $9,000.
Okay. So if someone wanted to try it instead of antidepressants, they could, but they'd be paying for it themselves. Just for curiosity, would you recommend that? Does it work? And are you cured when that's done?
So there is no cure for depression. It can often be put into remission, and the durability of that remission can be 6 months to several years.
Okay.
It does work as well as medicine. So there are people, young people, for example, who don't want to be on medicine, or people who are holistic. There are people that can't take medicine. They have allergies or they have impossible side effects. And for those people, you can often communicate with the insurance companies and try to get an exemption.
Okay.
Um, but then there are other people who just, philosophically don't want to be on medicine, and this would be an option for them.
Okay. So again, it's TMS. It's transcranial magnetic stimulation. And even though people are just maybe hearing about it for the first time, like you said, it's been around since the early 2000s. And you perform this right in your office?
Yes, yes. I have it's in a separate office. It's a large machine, and it's attached to basically what looks like a dental chair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I sent you a short film if
Yep.
you'd like to show it.
We are looking at it right now, and I'm glad that you're describing it, doctor, because for those who are listening on the podcast, they can imagine sitting in what looks like a dental chair, and if you're watching it on our streaming channel, you're seeing it. But again, painless, and it's just something where you're sitting there. How long is each session?
Each session is 20 minutes. The magnet is on an arm, and then the arm gets the magnet gets placed. It gets swiveled until it has contact with the skull. We have sophisticated sensors that ensure that the magnet is making the correct contact at the correct part of the skull. And then the machine is turned on and it clicks. It's quieter than a regular MRI machine. Most people have had MRI scans, so those can be quite loud and clanky. This is more of a click.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a ring clicking against a porcelain cup, and it clicks. It's 3 pulses per second for 3 seconds. So that's 30 pulses per treatment, and there's 80 trains. Each train is 10 seconds, so it's a total of 2,400 pulses.
Okay.
The patient is talking. There's somebody in the room with the patient at all times in case there's a problem, and then the patient gets up and drives home or back to work. And it's 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And then for 3 weeks after that, there is a tapering schedule, 3 times a week, twice a week, and then the final week once.
And how do people know if it's working? They just, at the end, they start feeling brighter, and how long does it take before they notice if it's working for them?
Okay, so people respond differently. Everybody's different. What we hope for is what we call an early response, where within the first 2 or 3 weeks, so by the 15th session, people will be feeling better. Most people have some target symptom that's a part of their depression. So let's say they want to wake up in the morning with motivation, or they want to go out and be social, or they don't want to have that feeling of dread. So we'll ask them about those specific experiences. And people often say, oh, I'm starting to feel better. Sometimes people will look better, especially if it's a patient of mine that I've known for many years. It will be clear. Family members are always invited in. We try to get people to bring in their pets if they like.
Okay.
And so we kind of involve the family. Depression is really a family illness. And sometimes there's a response in the middle. Sometimes there's a late response. There have been responses after the treatment is finished, kind of like radiation therapy. There's a buildup of energy in the brain that is eventually manifested. 40% of the time, there isn't a response. So people have to be prepared for disappointment.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then another option is ketamine, which we don't do, but ketamine and TMS are both increasingly available across Connecticut.
Okay. And as we come into May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, it's just good for people to know this. They can ask their doctors about it, or do they, like you said, they kind of need a referral, I guess, if they want insurance to pay for it. Some people might say, well, is that safe? Is it okay that I have this magnet pointed at my brain?
It's safer than medicine for sure. It's been around for 20 years. tens of thousands of people have had it. The people that can have it are people that with magnetic objects in their skull. So that's usually either shrapnel from a war situation or cochlear implants to treat severe deafness.
Okay.
Those people can't have it. Otherwise, it's considered quite safe. If people have a seizure disorder, we're a little bit more careful. Those people are often covered by anti-seizure medicines. If somebody's actively drinking or abusing substances, then we're a little bit more cautious. We try to get people to cut way back if they're a heavy drinker.
Okay.
But it's really quite safe.
Great. Well, I appreciate you sharing this information, and it may be just what some people need, and it may not be something they're aware of. So we want people to know that they can go to your website. It's shorelinetms.com. And for those who live in Connecticut, you're in Guilford, and people can come see you. Do you take new patients?
I take new patients, but you can also just type in TMS near me. There's Achieve TMS in Hartford. There's the Institute of Living. There's a national corporation called Greenbrook that has TMS machines up and down the state and the shoreline. Yale's doing it. There are 2 practices in Milford. So there are more
many.
and more.
Okay, that's great to know. Yeah. Well, Dr. Moore, we want to thank you for sharing your time with us and explaining about TMS. And I want to let people know that I know you share information out there. So if they want to follow you, you are at Shoreline TMS on Instagram or Facebook. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Kara. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Doctor. And there's more information on the cutting edge of wellness right here on Kara's Cures. You can go back on WFSB Plus and watch episodes that interest you. You can also listen to more episodes on the Kara's Cures podcast, wherever you like your podcast. I invite you to do that. And you can follow me on social media. I share this content there at Kara Sundlin. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.